Welcome to the video on using the written word in telling your story. So we're really now going to be focusing on the three elements associated with telling your story, and we start with the written word, obviously a very critical component. One of the more common instruments that you'll use in the written word is a cover letter. And either you're going to be submitting a cover letter when you're applying to a job, or more hopefully that you're submitting a cover letter after you had a networking event and you met someone, or that you had an informational interview and they asked you to send the resume. So for one reason or another, cover letter is a common tool that you're going to wind up using. Now, a cover letter should have three main elements. The first paragraph should state the position or explain why you're sending the letter. It may be that, again, you met someone at a networking event and you're following up. But whatever it is, that's what goes in that first paragraph. It's setting the stage and the context for the letter and for the documents that you're sending. The second paragraph highlights the skills that either match the job description, or again, if you've been in a networking or informational interview, you're highlighting the skills that you believe that company needs, and based on your value proposition and what you're bringing in terms of that sweet spot. So that's what goes into paragraph 2. It's really your sweet spot. And then paragraph 3 is either asking for an interview or a follow-up, to the extent that you can still maintain control, because a lot of times people will send a cover letter and then they're just kind of waiting for something to happen. So maybe you say something like, I'll follow up next week, and I hope that I can have an interview. I hope that I have an interview. I'm looking forward to interviewing with you. Some kind of maintain control and stay engaged, and give yourself permission to then follow up the next week. Now, content-wise, in terms of the skills that you want to be highlighting, obviously they need to be reflecting your sweet spot that we've been talking about all along. But the challenges that you're going to be going through the journey, and the opportunities to do many of the things and develop the skills, especially a lot of the soft skills that you're going to be developing, are really good input into the resume and into your personal value proposition. So as you're doing these challenges, be sure you keep track of what you've done and the skills that you've built, and be able to talk about examples so that you can weave that into your personal story. You're going to have a great opportunity through all of the challenges that are part of the journey. Take advantage of those and use those to help inform a lot of the dialogue that you're going to have in both written and oral communication. Now, very simply stated, resume has 4 major sections. You're going to have the contact info at the top. It's obviously your name and email address and phone number. Some people are leaving out home addresses, and that's fine these days. So much is communicated initially electronically that the company generally doesn't need your home address if you don't want to include it on the resume. They will get that eventually when if you're going through a hiring process. They'll get your home contact information, but you can leave that off the resume. The second is the education. College, reverse chronological order. So maybe you're at a college, university now, you were at a junior college before, the junior college would go second. Include the dates to and from, or when you've been there and how long you've been there. And then also include graduation date, expected graduation date. And I encourage students to include their GPA. Even if it's low, if you don't include it, they're going to think it's the worst. I mean, they're going to think the worst of it. So include it. And if it's not as strong as you'd like it to be, you could include possibly the GPA from your in your major, And also include your work experience. Tell the whole story. But it's worse if you leave it off because of the assumption it's going to probably be worse than it is. In the experience section, you're telling your story. Reverse chronological order, most current at the top, work backwards. Include both paid and volunteer work that you've done. You've done work with your local AKSI chapter, by all means, great stuff to include here. So include your experience, and in the next slide I want to kind of go through good ways to explain, to include that experience, but definitely include both paid and volunteer work. And then lastly, finish the resume with hard skills. Things like I speak different languages, or I have I can do certain kinds of programming, coding capability. Hard skills, not soft skills. Do not include strong communication skills or strong problem-solving skills. Examples of soft skills, don't include them here. Anybody can say they're a strong communicator, so it doesn't have any meaning. If part of your value proposition is that you are a strong communicator, then include experience examples in the experience section that show how you demonstrated strong communication. Show the substance. That's where the soft skills go. They're very critical, extremely important, but they go in the experience section because you need to talk about where you demonstrated it, not just that you have a soft skill. Now this section just summarizes examples of how to include some work experience in your resume. The left column, they're okay, but they're kind of weak. You know, worked with a business to carry out the United Way fundraising goals. It's okay, but it can be a lot stronger. So look at the column over on the right, and I want to point out 3 things that you want to try to include in your work experiences. First off, start with an action verb. Partnered or assisted or developed. Those are past tense. So those are things that this candidate did in the past, and they use the past tense of the verb form. If it's something you're currently doing, use present tense. Assist accountants with auditing, for instance. So pay attention to that verb tense. It's really important. And make it active voice, not passive voice, not partnering. It's you. It's as though you said, I partnered, but you leave the I out. So I leave the I out, partnered, assisted, develop, etc. The second part of it is who was the recipient of your action. So I partnered with more than 20 area businesses, or I assisted accountants with auditing. What did I do? Who did I do it with? And then the third piece, and the third piece is really critical. These are all critical, but this one is probably the biggest. So what? I partnered with more than 20 area businesses, and the so what, the result was we raised $1,500 or $15,000 for United Way and exceeded the goal by 23%. Now, don't make it up. If you don't have real hard data, you could say approximately 23%. But be sure that you include the outcome. What was the result? Kind of be critical of yourself and say, okay, I did this, so what? Who cares? Why? What's important? And if you drive yourself to do those kinds of things, include those kinds of comments, it's going to be much stronger. Now, if you don't have quantitative data, then you can say we raised, over $10,000 for United Way or something. If you don't have the hard data, use an estimate. That's fine, but quantify it to the best of your ability. So in these examples, what's the action verb? What did I do it? Who was the recipient of the action? And what was the outcome? What was the result? And those 3 elements, you can draft some pretty strong statements. Now, that you want them to reflect your sweet spot, and you want them to reflect what you think the company, your sense of the need that company has, and you want them to talk about how you impacted people, customer, and or the business in the experiences that you had. How did you improve people's operations, management, communication, etc.? How did you improve the customer relationship, and or how did you improve the profitability? Increase revenue, reduce expenses, increase profitability. So all three of those outcomes, definitions of outcomes, are things that you should strive for, but you want it to reflect, again, what your sweet spot is, and use this approach with regard to experiences. And you don't have to have 15 items under a given work experience. 2 or 3, 4 at the most, can tell a very compelling story. That's a pretty high-level summary of the things to consider when you're working on the written format of telling your story. But hopefully we went into enough detail to give you some good things to think about. And there's some other suggestions and examples in the Passport document that you have access to. So between this video and the Passport document, you should be able to come up with a pretty decent resume. But again, make sure that it's reflecting the work and the information that we've already created through the sweet spot and the value proposition and reflecting your brand and telling this story that you truly want told. So thanks again for participating in the program and watching this video. And hopefully it's helped you in creating your resume going forward.